Hello and welcome to the mailbag, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack, who yesterday on MLB Mondays had big plans of going to his dad's place and getting his webcam and his microphone. And you know what? A little bit of snow in Edmonton. The highway is all bad. Things
It
didn't work out.
didn't work out. I was on a time crunch. Traffic was bad. I was trying to get back in time for 9 o'clock to film with you. I think we still didn't hit record until 9:30, anyways. But yeah,
So there's Adam with his phone, putting in the work anyways. So you folks
like
will just need to deal with it.
prospect right now.
That's right. That's right. This is Mailbag, a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon. This is the show we do every single week where we comb through your interaction as the listener, as the grounds crew, and we answer all your questions and comments we can. You can always reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Blue Sky, The Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast. You can drop your comments in the YouTube comment section here, or you can get that automatic Patreon bump by joining Patreon. By doing so, you get our preamble, which today's was a lot about calendars, right?
Yes, advent calendars.
Advent calendars. Adam has a coffee advent calendar on the go, and I have a Wii advent calendar on the go. Two of our favorite things. You also obviously get automatically into the mailbag when you have Patreon. You're also going to have exclusive access to our interviews instantly. I know that we sat down with Joe Siddle yesterday, so you would have had instant access to that. We sat down with Ben Nicholson Smith last week. Same with that. With the Iowa meat truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our prospect interview from last Thursday, which was actually a really great little interview. If you'd like to get to know the man, the legend, known as the Iowa Meat Truck, he's going to be playing first base with the Buffalo Bison, most likely. Fingers crossed by about midsummer, probably starting the year with Double A New Hampshire. All right. On that, speaking of interviews, we're going to do a quick little pump up here for next week. We have joining us from John Boy, Jack Jolly Olive, big Mets fan. So of course that fits in with what has been happening on the Major League Baseball landscape recently. We are also sitting down with Baseball Gen tomorrow, and that should be out hopefully either Thursday or Friday. We'll see how the news is moving. I'd love to record that Wednesday night and get it out Friday morning, but baseball news might happen too quickly here as that first big domino fell. So we'll see how it goes. And on that, let's dive into this. I did mean to mention they are going to be. So this is kind of the biggest news right now for Blue Jays fans is that the draft lottery selection is being made today at 5:30 Eastern time. Now, the Blue Jays have a 7% chance. Let's get the actual number here. 7.48% chance at the number one pick overall, which is unanimously going to be Ethan Holiday, brother of Jackson, son of Matt.
He's supposed to
60 point. Sorry, Adam.
he's supposed to be better than Jackson.
Mm-hmm. He
He's
is.
the best of the bunch. So
So a top six pick, Toronto has a 60.6% chance. So these are the teams that have a shot at the number one pick overall. Colorado sitting at 22.45%. Same with the Miami Marlins. The Los Angeles Angels have a 17.96% chance. The Washington Nationals, a 10.2% chance. The Jays in at number five with that 7.48. And then the Pirates at 5.31. The Reds at 3.67. The Rangers at 2.45% chance. So again, we find out where the Blue Jays draft. Don't get too excited because as much as there's a 7.48% chance that we get the first overall pick, there's just as good a chance that they drop five and are picking 10th. So we'll see how it rolls out. Draft lotteries are always interesting, but that's kind of the big news that all baseball fans are kind of keeping their eye on, or at least us fans of bottom feeding teams, anyways, are keeping our eyes on.
Indeed.
Breaking into mailbag here. We're going to start with Twitter because this is a bulky one. We're going to get to as many as we possibly can, but I don't know if we'll have time to get to all of these. So we'll just dive in here. This is from Christina on Twitter. She wrote in yesterday and she goes, "Hey guys, so Jordan Romano has been my favorite Blue Jay for years. And when they non tendered him, I was honestly the most upset I've been over a player leaving since this front office let Edwin Encarnacion go to Cleveland for less money than they offered. Something I completely forgot about. But yes, watching Edwin walk was also tough to take." She goes, "I understood the business side of the move and held on to hope he'd return. Watching him go to Philly yesterday for more money than the Jays would have paid him in arbitration feels like a dagger. Please make it make sense. Why would a team in desperate need of high leverage bullpen arms let one go when the open market obviously valued him as more than they would have had to pay?" Crying emoji. So to start with, Christina, I actually feel very similar to you. Jordan Romano, the Markham Madman, one of my favorite Blue Jays over the last few years. I too understood why they non tendered him. It felt like a baseball business decision at the time. And I could be wrong here, and I'll let Adam dive in on this. Personally, I think Ross Atkins is just horrible at judging the market. Um, Everything you said is correct. This is a team that needs bullpen help desperately. This is a team that part of the reason why the bullpen imploded in 2024 and ranked 30th in all of the number stats is because Jordan Romano was injured for the majority of the season and they didn't have a back end of the pen reliever. So Jordan Romano's deal with the Philadelphia Phillies, this is reported on by Ken Rosenthal. The deal is for $8.5 million and includes a $500,000 bonus if he throws 60 innings. The total comes in above Romano's projected arbitration number of $7.5 million. So Jordan Romano let go by the Blue Jays to just make $1.5 million more on the open market. And Adam, I'll throw to you here on your opinion of this. But yeah, from my standpoint, it's just literally a fuck up from the front office.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Jordan Romano is going to be available April 1st. Mm-hmm. If there is concerns that he's not going to be what he was, like, I don't know, like if the goal is to go out and sign like Kenley Jansen, is there any other closers that are available still that you're like interested in at all?
I mean, Carlos Estevez, Jeff Hoffman, like there's guys out there that would look good in a Blue Jays uniform. I don't know if there's any surefire closers. Now, there's a couple that are available on the trade market. I know Devin Williams in Milwaukee is on the final year of his contract, and it's been stated that that organization, the Brewers, are looking to move him. So maybe there's a deal that could be made there. I think Williams is going to cost, and if this is what you're looking up, that's great. But my guess is I think 10 million in arbitration this year.
The estimate, according to Spotrac, is 8.4 million.
Okay.
So, okay, let's just use Devin Williams as the example then. If the plan is to go with Devin Williams instead because they feel like pitch for pitch, it's an upgrade performance-wise. Regardless of, like, once arbitration shakes out, whether he ends up with 8.4 million and you say, okay, he was cheaper than Romano, or through arbitration he gets $11 million. If the $8 million of Jordan Romano that we let walk away, if we're gonna reallocate it towards an improvement, then I don't have a problem with it. Like I don't see like oh, technically he, got more money from San Francisco. So that doesn't definitively say, well, we should have kept him for slightly less money then.
No,
Like if
I agree.
we upgrade and we're gonna, go spend 12 million on a better pitcher, it's like, okay, well, we wouldn't have been able to spend that 12 million if we gave 8 to Jordan. Or however you want to, have it shake out.
I will say this. Obviously, time will tell, right? We'll see how this bullpen looks going into the season, March 28th or whatever the first day of the season is. However, I will say if they fail to land anything higher leverage than Eric Swanson or Chad Green on the open market, then my opinion is absolutely they misread the market and they should have kept Jordan Romano. Because if they're trying to allocate that 7.5 million and get more in return, I can't see them being able to do that on the open market. And again, just because they cleared room doesn't mean it has to be through free agency that they fill that void, right? So yes, there is absolutely a world out there where they maybe make a trade and they calculated the value that the player they're trading for in return is bringing to the budget in to the equation of moving Jordan Romano's salary out. That's not impossible at all.
Yeah.
Going to Blue Sky. That's at the Walk Off Podcast. Mustard Tiger wrote in and said, "Hey guys, I know the last couple pods you both are saying it makes the most sense on Vladdy's end to go to free agency. ... and ... I don't disagree. But then what? What do we do? Question mark. If Vladdy and Bo are no longer an option, Atkins needs another solution. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I'll be happy to be wrong. What is this team's plan?"
Well, I think you and me are both advocates of a full rebuild, right?
It sure feels like that's probably the move at this point. My big like I think anyone who's listened to this podcast long enough knows I hate the idea of a rebuild, right? Like, I really am not advocating that this team tear it down, but you start looking at where they're at contract wise, where they're at with expiring contracts, their core, which is obviously built around Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and has been for years. Both of these guys are in really precarious spots when it comes to this final year. Because for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., his value is at an all-time high. He's coming off his literal best season as a baseball player in major leagues. He didn't hit quite as many home runs as he did in 2021, but just numbers wise, just elite sort of stuff. Then you watch Juan Soto get an absolutely astronomical amount of money, a record breaking contract in baseball in a market that was soft for good hitters, which Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is. And then you look at the free agent class in 2025, 26, 2026, 27, and realize that outside of Kyle Tucker, there is nothing even close to comparable to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So if I'm Vladdy's camp and I'm Vladdy's agent, I'm constantly telling him, buddy, just go out there, worry about 2025, put up big numbers, and we are going to get paid. And if you're Bo Bichette, it is literally the complete opposite, right? His value is the lowest it has been in his entire major league career. This is a dude that won had the most hits in baseball or in the American League, I should say, in 2021 and 2022, repeated that. In 2023, fell just short because he missed 3 weeks. And had he played the amount of games he did the 2 years before, would have done it for a third time in a row. Last year, he played about half the games of the season and the other half was injured. And who knows if he was just also playing through injury during those other 80 some games he played. But the truth is, it was an awful performance. Bo Bichette was a far worse player than any of us anticipated. And he just, numbers wise, was a below average offensive guy in almost every category. So if you're Bo Bichette, why in the world would you even listen on a, hey, Bo, according to your numbers, we still believe in you, right? But according to last year, we can't offer you a mega deal. But what about like 5 years, $100 million? His agent's going to be like, no way. Bet on yourself,
Mhm.
play it out, and if we need to take a 5 year, $100 million deal in 2025, 26 off season, we will. So to get back to what Mustard Tiger is saying, I mean, I don't think this is going to be the way that this team goes. I think it's far more likely they overpay for a Corbin Burns and an Anthony Santander. They run it back, and then we're sitting here next off season, maybe coming off of a third wild card spot if everything goes right. And when I say everything goes right, I mean Corbin Burns stays healthy, Kevin Gosman rebounds a little bit from last year, Chris Bassett doesn't get worse. Bowden
Mhm.
Francis is for real. Jose Barrios continues to log innings like he has over the last 5 to 10 years. You see Bo Bichette completely rebound. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stays on pace. Dalton Varsho is not the black hole at the plate that he's been, and somewhat comparable numbers to what he was doing in Arizona. I mean, listen to the list I'm laying out here for this
Right.
team to just be in the wild card hunt. And so maybe the smartest thing this team can do is cross its fingers, hope that they get as close to that number one draft pick overall at 5:30 Eastern time, right? That they have lined that up. And maybe this is something the front office is also looking at. You know what? Because does it change, in your opinion, Adam, if for some crazy reason that 7.48% comes to the Blue Jays? And they all of a sudden have Ethan Holiday, which is, let's face it, the biggest prospect that they will have had since trading their last big prospect off for Dalton Varsho.
Mhm.
Do you think that if they get that number one pick, it could change the direction that this front office is taking?
Um, I would say if I'm Vlad, okay, just the direction the front office takes comes so much down to what Vladdy wants to do. And I'll throw Bo in the mix too, for sure. But if I'm Vlad, and this goes the same for Bo, I'm so much more interested in considering signing long term with the Blue Jays if there was Ethan Holiday in the system. But even then, I'm talking about like from being 1% interested to 10% interested. Like, sure, it's 10 times as much interest, but it's still not very interested. Um, so yeah, I would say it would be, I mean, for a bunch of reasons, amazing if we got the
Mm-hmm.
first overall pick and whatever. But I still think even in that situation, rebuild, and he's just the next wave.
The
The
next wave.
feeling we had in 2017 and the team sucked, and it was like, well, we got Bo and Vlad. These kids are tearing it up in Double A. Like, here's the future. Like, sit tight and be patient, but the future is bright. Like, and we just do that with Ethan Holiday as the next wave, right? Like, I don't know.
It's bleak and it's really disheartening to even talk about. And I hate that we've hit a point as Blue Jays fans where you look at the landscape that this organization is currently in, and you look at the AL East, and you kind of need to be realistic, right? And realistically, everything has to go right for this team to be competitive in 2025. They need to nail free agency. They need to make a few very good trades. And they also need to hope that there are some big time rebounds on this team compared to last year. Kevin Gosman and Bo Bichette being the biggest. I
Yeah,
don't think this front office is going to do it, Adam. I personally think that with their jobs on the line, Shapiro and Atkins are for the first time going to make some um, uncomfortable moves. I think they're going to overpay to get a guy like Corbin Burns. I think they're going to overpay to get an Anthony Santander. And what's really frustrating about that is that if Bo and Vlad just walk next year, this team is Anthony Santander as the offense.
yeah. Santander and Varsho as the face of your franchise. That's
Don't get me wrong. Santander, as a switch hitter, a power guy who's going to give you 30 plus home runs, probably at least for the next 3 years. Great secondary piece. And this is what this team has missed for the last 2 years is a cleanup hitter, a legit guy, a power bat in the middle of this order. But to carry an offense, Anthony Santander is not that guy. So I don't know if it's irresponsible to invest a bunch of money on the free agent market this year to just watch your real offense in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. walk away next year and make $500 million with, I don't know, the Mets, the Yankees, God forbid the
um,
Red Sox. Like, ugh.
it is going to be harder to sign, even like when we say Anthony Santander. It's going. We know we have to overpay to bring guys into Toronto. We're gonna have to overspend more this off season than we've
Mm-hmm.
ever had before. Because at least in the past, when you go to Gary Gossman and you're like, "Hey, come to Toronto," at least there's a like, "Hey, the future's bright. Look at all these pieces we have. You know, you're going to be the pinnacle of it. You know, you're going to be our crown jewel. It's going to put us over the edge, right?" And as much as like, yeah, money is a deciding factor for a lot of guys, it's like, okay, but also so is like having fun, being on a good team that's like competitive with a chance to win, a chance to succeed, right? Where like the supporting pieces around you are good and are going to make it easier for you to hit because you've got protection in the lineup, or like all these things that were working in our favor 3 years ago are now complete opposite,
Yeah.
working against us. Like if I'm Santander and I get comparable offers from the Jays and the Yankees, who, by the way, are now out a slugger,
Mm-hmm.
why would I even consider the Blue Jays? Even if you gave me an extra year, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm going to spend 7 years, 6 of them without Bo or Vlad, and it's going to be me and Dalton Varsho. Like it's not a recipe for success to join this team on the cusp of what's leaving. Not to mention, everybody and their cat knows that this management group is on its absolute last legs. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, if you're interested in taking advantage of a super desperate hot seat GM and being like, okay, get like overpay me, like kudos, tip of the cap to you if that's what you want to do. But like, I can also see a guy being like, I don't even know who's going to be here next year. And I think that was a kind of like an unspoken factor in our Juan Soto sweepstakes. It's like maybe Rogers had the money to go toe to toe with Cohen, but with New York, the Mets, like that's a stable franchise. You know what to expect if you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
making a 15-year commitment. You know who you're going to be working with, who your boss is for the next decade and a half. That's what you want. So even on a shorter scale, like why would you want to sign a 6-year deal with a guy who's probably not here tomorrow, or like
Mm-hmm.
going to be gone, and now what? The next regime, how strongly do they feel about you, right? Like, are you going to be the full-time right fielder, the full-time first baseman, or are you going to get relegated to DA? Like all these sort of things, there's question marks around any deal that gets signed. So again, that's just another reason why it's like, okay, well, because I don't know, you got to pay me even more. Like, you got to pay me a premium to come to Toronto, the taxes, all that other bullshit. And then you go, and I want to play third base and get another contract potential at 35. But if you're going to relegate me to DH, or the next management core is going to trade for a better third baseman and make me DH, and now my 35-year-old contract is going to be a lot crappier. or like whatever. These are all. I don't. Let's not get hung up on the specifics of it, but you get the point, right? Is that like
Mm-hmm.
with that uncertainty, it is like a real turnoff. That I don't know. Here's what I was thinking of overnight with because you and I spent Monday talking about how like it feels like the right thing to do is to do a full rebuild, and that that's the most responsible thing we could do in a rebuild would be to trade away our depreciating assets like that have any value. Bo, Vlad, I know like we're not going to get a major haul that we would have before necessarily. We'll still get something, right?
Yes.
Or you let them walk for nothing.
And for Vlad, you get a good amount. Like, let's be serious here. We just watched what Juan Soto
Yeah,
signed for. A bat like Vlad, you're gonna get a haul for a year of him.
you're
You
gonna get
are.
right. Two really good prospects and another guy with like question marks but some upside or something, whatever, right? You'll get something good from him. The big concern is, I mean, the obvious concern is, okay, do we want Ross Atkins being the guy
Yeah,
who
this is
run it into the ground, being the guy who's in charge of evaluating the prospects we're getting back and negotiating the terms of a trade? Like, no, but here, okay, I know I have a bit of a reputation for taking the wild point of view that people are like, oh, I love Adam because we never know what side he's going to take on this. Here's one for you. The best case scenario is Ross Atkins is the one in charge of trading away Bo and Vlad. And here's why. Almost for sure, whatever we get is going to be disappointing. Whether it's Ross Atkins, whether it's James Click, the internal promotion, or whether it's someone else that we hire next offseason. We're going to watch Vlad go to the Mets and just absolutely rake and be furious at James Click. You traded him away, and all we got was whoever the Dalton Varsho equivalent is, right? And then we're going to be furious with the guy that we got, that we lost Vladdy for, while he's hitting 75 home runs for the Mets. If at least it's Ross Atkins that does it, we can just blame a guy that we already are blaming for the disaster, and it can be wrapped up in a neat little package. And then when James Click takes over immediately following the trade, at least he has a clean slate of runway where we're not like on day one already holding crimes against him that
yes.
hands were tied, right? So like whoever we bring in hypothetically to trade away Bo and Vlad and hopefully get a haul, there's going to be frustration that he traded them away as we watch them succeed somewhere else. So even as he's doing his rebuild, there's going to be that tarnished like legacy attached to whoever makes that trade. So that's why I just think if we just make that Ross Atkins like cleansing blow on his way out the door, like do the dirty work, and then let's move forward with like, whoever. Yeah, I'm just gonna say James Click comes in and is like, okay, the bad man's gone. He did all the bad stuff. Sorry about that. Let's do the best we can with what we're left, right? Like, do you see what I'm saying though? Like, am I crazy with this for thinking like
No,
that?
I get what you're saying, that he's the lightning rod for all the hate that would
Yeah.
be inevitable when you trade away your core players, guys who have been touted to this and hyped to this franchise for half a decade. It's not a terrible idea, and I mean, this is an organization that constantly talks about collaboration, and there's probably multiple voices involved in any sort of trade or
Yeah.
free
Let Ross
agent signing or of
scapegoat.
any kind. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
All right. Next question. We're going to Patreon here because we had a bunch of Patreon comments. So we need to make sure to get to all of those. This one is from Matt Finley, and it's a little bit of a long one, so bear with me here. He goes, "Hey, Scott and Adam, with the Mets signing Soto, I was thinking about how the Blue Jays can try to take a page out of their book. After the season, they signed Scherzer, went 101 and 61, and collapsed in the playoffs. They took another shot at reloading with big moves, such as re signing Nemo and signing Sanga. They then turned in a disappointing below 500 season and missed the playoffs. When they traded Scherzer away that year to Texas, their pitch to him so that they could do so and waive his no trade was their plan was to compete in 2025 and 2026, with 2024 being more of a transition reload type of year. The Mets then proceed to have a pretty decent transition year by adding 14 more wins and making the playoffs with an 89 and 73 record, and now seem to be primed to compete in 2025 onward. Do you think the Jays could take a similar approach and use last year as the we fucked up year, make 2025 our transition year, and compete in 2026 with the right moves? Kind of talking myself into, well, the Mets made a 14-game swing. Why can't we? LOL. Cheers, and sorry if this is a bit lengthy. So, yesterday I got a text from my wife. This was right after Jordan Romano had got picked up by the Phillies. She has a Jordan Romano jersey and is a big fan, so she's not all that pleased with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro right now, along with most of you watching this right now. She's right there with you. And it said along the lines of, my God, am I ever not looking forward to this upcoming Blue Jays team? I just can't see how they can be competitive. And I wrote back, I was like, every year there's a New York Mets. Why not us? And I mean, obviously, this was tongue in cheek a little bit. I'm not that hopeful. But it is true. There's always a team or two out there that's planning on retooling, and then it winds up going better than they expected. My problem with that is that how do you, like, who's your core in 2026? Right? Like who are you retooling around?
I know.
Again, I hate to keep going back to Dalton Varsho and Anthony Santander being the crux of this team in 2026, but the truth is too, Dalton Varsho is gone after 2026. Like, we're down to 2 more years of Dalton. Not that he's an impossible guy to re-sign if that's something that the Blue Jays wish to do. Obviously, he hasn't done enough with the bat to be a mega money guy or anything like that. But it does beg the question as to where are we going to score runs in 2026? How? With who? By the way, everybody, because we have gotten a bunch of messages saying we've been too negative, for everyone who's rolling their eyes that who can even think we're being too negative, we also got a pile of messages saying we're being too positive. So I don't fucking know, guys. I mean, I guess it's all perception on your end. But yeah, like, this is why I'm kind of leaning towards the best thing that this team could do right now is rebuild while there's still assets that's going to bring stuff back. And again, I don't want to rebuild. Like, my God, do I ever not want to? I'm just trying to do the math to see how not doing a rebuild works out. And every time I do the crunch the numbers, we're just doing a rebuild in a year.
Yeah.
But without the assets to get big prospects back.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And dear Lord, Adam, would I love to be wrong. I would love to eat crow all year long. It would be beautiful to just open up YouTube and every comment is, you morons. How did you not trust Ross Atkins more? Look at what the man has done. And we'll be like, we don't understand why we didn't trust Ross Atkins. We should have bought into the process years ago. Obviously, this is a genius.
Baking. Oh,
this is a genius general manager nobody gave enough credit to.
You don't win 4D chess on the first move of the game, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Ross Atkins 101.
you toil in continuity, and then when that continuity pays off, you put your hands up and you receive the trophy.
So, Matt, I'll leave you with this. just the fact that it's a beautiful dream.
Yeah.
And if it happens, I'm right there with you, brother. I will eat all my words and I will praise Ross Atkins and we will cheer this team into the ALCS.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There are the could it happen?
Yeah, baseball's a funny game.
Like, look at, the Royals also had a 30 win increase
Mm-hmm.
from 2023. Like, Bobby Witt Jr. had his breakout season, but that only gets you how many extra wins. Like, you need the stars to align, but that's like where baseball's at, right? Is the Tigers all of a sudden are clicking, right? And you think, oh, found a little bit of magic, captured a little bit of lightning in a bottle. But to think that you captured lightning in a bottle and that's your plan for the future is like, well, we're the lightning catchers now.
Yeah,
Let's
don't like
do
that
that.
idea. No.
Yeah, that's not a recipe for success. Like, so yeah, it's could the Jays do it? Yeah, absolutely. Can we make the playoffs this year? For sure. I don't even think it's that big of a stretch to think we could sneak into the playoffs.
Sure, this could be an 85 win team with the right moves. I mean, Santander and Corbin Burns definitely improves this team's chance of competing for a wild card. 100% it does.
And then you got all the other questions, like you said. Bo could bounce back. I mean, probably will. Can't get much worse, right? Has to bounce back somewhat. Probably a decent amount, especially in his walk year. I'd imagine he's doing
Pretty
everything
motivated. Yeah.
motivated here. But then you got the questions like, Gossman got anything left? Can he be Gossman of old, or is he old Gossman? Right? There's two different options. The Barrios stuff, that like is what's our pitcher?
Francis.
Francis Bell. Is he for real? I mean, come on. We went down this track before with Alek Manoah, who had a higher, like, you just, okay, like, yeah, let's bank on let's bank on Francis Bowden to be a 200 inning guy.
Bowden Francis, you're killing me here, Adam.
All right, I'm dying.
All right. Moving on here in Patreon.
It's just too much.
It is too much. It feels that way. It does feel that way. And I again, God, I would love to be wrong. So sticking with Patreon, Mish Beer says, loved this one. Love me some Joe Siddle on a bleak Monday afternoon. So that, of course, in reference to our emergency podcast yesterday with Joe Siddle, where we kind of broke down the Juan Soto trade and where the Blue Jays were headed. If you didn't get a chance to check it out, do so. Color commentator and analyst for the Blue Jays, former Montreal Expo catcher, just his insight and knowledge on the game is a beautiful thing and just fun to listen to. So again, if you didn't get a chance, check that out. Michael Meyer says, Soto deal. Wow. I'm eating my words, boys. I expected the number to start with a 5 at best. Gonna haunt the Mets when Cohen gets tired of it. So that was the message we were talking about in the preamble there. Mm-hmm. And I know you said Cohen will never tire of it. He's a lifelong Mets fan, and this will be his favorite toy forever. My favorite saying is time will tell. Time will tell. But yeah, he did score a mega contract that I think exceeded most baseball fans' expectations.
Oh, yeah. Of course. I'll admit to that.
Going to Deb in Patreon. She says, I think a difference between Vladdy and Soto would be that Soto has more proven postseason success. I love Vladdy and think he could be great in high-pressure playoffs, but Soto is more of a sure thing. That is just, when you look at the sample sizes, yeah, Soto has done a lot better in playoffs than Vladdy has. Vladdy's sample size in playoff games is absolutely minuscule. I know that there's some folks who think that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the problem at 25 years old and not the team that's been built around him and the front office and the way that it's been gone down. I'm not taking all of the onus off of Vladdy. Obviously, 2023 was not a very good season for him. And there's been struggles with his offense in the weirdest times where you're just like, how is this kid struggling? We've ripped through piles of hitting coaches. But I mean, I know there were a couple comments in a few of our episodes where it's like Vladdy's the least clutch hitter in the history of Toronto sports, and it's like, okay, well, that's not fucking true even a little bit, but
Well,
sure.
I'll say this as far as like Vlad's payday that is for sure coming next year, right? I think we both, where I feel very confident right now is that it's probably starts with a 5.
Yeah.
And be more surprised if it starts with a 4 than if it starts with a 6. Like I think 6 is more likely than under 5. Now, as far as the clutch factor goes, yeah, he had a big resurgent season and playing in a bunch of games that meant nothing. Like,
Yeah.
can't argue that. But
You can also argue the other side, right, Adam, where you're like, he didn't have a lot of guys hitting very well around him at the time either.
Right, he was the only guy you had to get out, and you couldn't get him out. So, sure. I would say if I'm his agent going into next season, and this is conditional on like, yeah, of course, he needs to put up another 320 average, 30 to 40 home run season. Right, like whatever. But like if he does it again, whether the team's good or not, whether they miss the playoffs, if it's a 75 win team, and he has another season like he did last year, but then you're saying, yeah, but he's not clutch. He's never proven that he can get it done with the pressure on. If I'm his agent, I go, are you kidding me? This season, there was a $500 million of pressure on him.
Yeah.
Going into his walk year, or like in his walk year here, he knew the difference between hitting, 265 and 25 home runs versus hitting 325 and 41 home runs, which he did, hypothetically, was going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. That's about as much pressure as you can put on a young kid. And he went out and he did it. He hit 311 and 41 home runs. Like that, he bet on himself. And when he needed to come through, he had one season to do it, and he did it. Like, now, again, that's all conditional on will he actually.
Of course, will he have a good season? But
right.
No, it's a good point. And I will also say I find it, I don't know. Like maybe it's the age of the commenter, right? Like I just can't wrap my head around writing a 25-year-old off as not clutch in such small sample sizes, right? Like it's just like the age itself, like was he put in a situation where maybe there was too much on his shoulders and he wasn't ready for it at that age? Possibly, right? I mean, we watched how well he succeeded in 2021, and I mean, there's a few people that are like, minor league parks, but like, if you actually just look at the numbers, that's not the case. He had just as many home runs on the road. But anyways, again, irrelevant.
Yep.
Let's say Vladimir Guerrero Jr. really is just a 35 home run hitter. Fine. There's no way it's going to affect his price tag. And I don't think there's an organization out there who would even use the clutch shit as a mark against him.
No, I don't think so either. Opportunity is such a big thing. Like, you could point to a guy like Aaron Judge, I think, who has whatever, like 30 career postseason games and go, okay, here's a sample size. Here's what the numbers are in the postseason over, 8 playoff runs in his career or whatever, right? I don't think you can point to Vlad's
3 wild card games and be
right.
like, he's 4-20. Like, right. It's like, okay, well, fuck, the whole team didn't hit. Look at the scores. Like outside of that one game with Seattle where Teoscar Hernandez was taking curtain calls in the 4th, but before the team completely collapsed, right? Like, but anyways, if again, what the fuck do we know, guys? Like, you know what? If you want to blame Vladdy, maybe we're full of shit. Wouldn't be the first time. So
You know what? If I was a, if I mean, I'm not going to say I bet money on this, but my conspiracy theory here, part of my sales pitch, if I'm Steve Cohen to Juan Soto, right, is like the vision for what the Mets are going to be, and the idea that like we're going to give you 765 million, but we're not turning the taps off after that, right? Like however long the folder was that they slid across the table, right? Like you open it up, page one, there's the money, right? 765 over 15 years. Turn the page, there's a picture of Vladdy. And I go, we're getting him next year too.
And they're like, hit that button. And he's like, what button? And they're like, that button. And then he hits it and Vladdy dances. It's actually just like a.
I, I didn't see where you were going with that. I didn't expect the card. But yeah, I mean, he's gonna get so much money. It's
Gonna get
crazy.
so much money. Sticking with Patreon, Wyatt G. What's sweeter than the tears of Yankee fans after watching them lose the World Series? Question mark. The tears of entitled Yankees fans after watching them lose one Soto to the Mets. Second best case scenario. Wyatt could not agree more. I mean, outside of the Jays, the second best case scenario is him not in the American League and not with the Dodgers. So the Mets look great.
It's also like extra sweet that he did play for the Yankees for a year. Like he did.
Yes.
It wasn't like he played the 2 years for the Padres and then became a free agent, and the Yankees were like, "We're gonna go get him," and then the Mets were like, "No, we're gonna go get him," and the Mets just outbid him. It's like literally like he played in New York. Yankees fans absolutely fell in love with the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now to lose him is just that much
Yeah.
better.
And I mean, Yankees fans are just crying constantly. It is a beautiful thing. And they keep screaming about how it was just money. It was just money. But no, I think it was them. It was them. I mean, it was money had something to do with it, obviously. But no. Nobody really likes Yankee fans, right? I mean, for the most part, the shine's off of the dynasty. They've done nothing in years.
Yeah.
2019 or 2009, bit of a fluke, if you ask me. So I don't know. I think it just made all the sense in the world for Juan Soto to go elsewhere.
Are we allowed to cheer for the Mets when Vladdy signs with the Mets next year? Like, are we allowed to put them as our second team? They're an NL team, right? So that's
Hmm.
they're not a division rival, but they are still
Well, we cheered for John Gibbons, right? We're already pretty much all Mets fans.
true. That's true. All right, I'm all in.
Uh, the only thing that was more awesome to see than Yankees fans and the amount of copium that they are dealing with currently with trying to explain this is Red Sox fans just being completely wrong in every aspect of that fucking sliding. Man, it was so funny how many Red Sox insiders were like, trust me, bro, this is happening.
My
David Ortiz. Rafael Devers is from Dominican Republic too. It's like, okay, well, I mean, every team in baseball has a pretty deep
yeah.
list of Dominican players that has played with their franchise. So, anyways, this is where Jays fans are at too. Is I'm just literally happy over other fan bases' sadness. I've gone full Trump supporter here, basically. Ian Elliott with Patreon wrote in and he goes, books! Exclamation mark, LOL. Sounds like the baseball guys are boring. Sounds like the hockey guys are the fun ones. This is in response to the Ben Nicholson Smith interview where we asked him at the end what the Sportsnet Christmas party was like. And his response was pretty much the baseball guys are over there talking about books they read, trying to ignore baseball as a sport. And the hockey guys are really hanging from the roof. Yeah. Okay, going to YouTube. I know we're getting long in the tooth here. We'll try and wrap things up and get to as many of yours as possible. Boom Must Die is responding to the Friday show. We had Brian Frank of The Herd on. He, of course, is one of the more knowledgeable guys on everything Buffalo Bison's out there. I mean, just historically, the team in general, he covers every game. So a really good guy to get to hear his thoughts on the future Blue Jays. And of course, so many of the Blue Jays last year played in Buffalo before getting called up to be in the bullpen. And so we had a pretty big bullpen discussion. And Boom Must Die goes, bullpen was cursed last year, fully cursed. Cook, Brock, and Danner all should have been able to help this team at the major league level, and all three missed significant time. So he's talking of Connor Cook, TJ Brock, and Hagen Danner. Hagen Danner especially would have been on this team. I mean, he was called up in 2023, pitched 7 pitches, and wound up blowing out his oblique in a devastating turn of events. I mean, to make your major league debut, get your entire family down to Toronto to face one guy and not get through that at bat. Just a really sad scenario. Built himself all the way back up and then hurt his elbow and missed a part of the AAA season. And then by the time he was back, and he was dominating in Buffalo, but it was September and he has one option left. And my opinion, I haven't heard any official stance on this, but my opinion is the bullpen was so on fire and the Jays were so out of it anyways that as an organization, they didn't want to burn that last option. Connor Cook, another guy that really everyone felt like he was going to take another step this year, and he just really couldn't stay healthy pretty much the entire season. And then TJ Brock, friend of the show, another guy we've had on a couple of times here. We last talked to him when he was just going from high A Vancouver to double A New Hampshire. And he throws 101 miles an hour, averages 98 on his fastball. He really should have been in AAA Buffalo this year, and for the same reason, just struggled to stay healthy long enough to get that call up. And so I think it's pretty obvious we'll see him in Buffalo this year. I think Danner is going to, if I'm going to make a prediction, I think Hagen Danner makes this team out of spring training with how many holes there are in this bullpen. I think that the Blue Jays do view him, especially with the improvement on his slider becoming a top tier pitch, because he does reach triple digits, right? So Danner hits 100, and his problem has always been they just didn't have another pitch to pair with it. And in the last year, his slider has become borderline elite. And of course, you can pair a good slider with a triple digit fastball and be pretty effective in the big leagues. So watch for those guys in 2025. A bummer they couldn't help this team in 2024. Mantis Toboggan, doctor. He goes, something to note on Eric Swanson. Last 30 games, 3 ERA, 1.04 whip. Last 15 games, 1.32 ERA, and a whip under 1, 0.59. And last 7 games, 1.37 ERA and a 0.45 whip. Obviously not high leverage as he was before, but still encouraging. Great interview. I'm feeling spoiled with all these videos. Glad Alan Rodin was mentioned. His stats looked very legit once he adjusted in AAA. I guess the last 2 comments are just like, maybe the bullpen's fine. And if there's any area, any hole on this team that who knows, it might just rebound and no one saw it coming, it is the bullpen. Bullpens just seem to, you never know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grogan wrote in. He goes, I really like the way you handle these interviews, Scott. Great job. So thank you. Glad you guys are enjoying them. James Britton goes, Jays have too many holes in their lineup to compete for years to come. Also, those big name players are never coming to Toronto, don't matter how much money you throw at them. Look at what the Dodgers did. They went out and signed Snell after what they already had. Soto with the Mets are going to make them stronger, but the Dodgers are going to take it all again. 2025 has already been decided. LOL takes the interest right out of the game. So I get James's frustration here. I kind of disagree with a few of those points. I don't think that it doesn't matter how much money the Blue Jays offer. I think money speaks volumes in this league. And if the Blue Jays outspend on the free agent market, a guy like Corbin Burns very well could come to the Blue Jays. I mean, we watched them win bidding wars with Springer and Simeon and Hyunjin Ryu, Gosman. I mean, the Blue Jays have made some pretty big contracts. Have they done any contracts that have started with a two? They have not. So we'll see. I also don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers are just going to win again in 2025. Baseball is a funny little sport, and I mean, injuries can go and cripple even the best teams in the world, right? You have a couple starting rotation injuries, and maybe Shohei's not healthy. I don't know. I could eat my words. Maybe the Blue Jays land absolutely nobody, and the Dodgers win 162 games and just fly to the World Series.
I think the worst thing for baseball is to have one juggernaut at the top.
I agree.
So, like, the Dodgers being the Dodgers, bad for baseball if everyone else is the Blue Jays and the Braves. But, like, if you've got the Dodgers, now the Mets are being right up there too. I mean, the Yankees are not going to go away.
I mean, the Padres lost a 5-game series in game 5 by 1 run to them.
Yeah, like this is it. It's like I'd rather see playoff baseball between absolute all-star teams and watch, like, unless it's my own team, I don't really want to get on board with the Arizona Diamondbacks again. You know, like, we had a weird investment in them because of Moreno and Gurriel, right? Like, so that was its own thing. But, like, it is a more enjoyable experience to be like, oh, superstar after superstar, and all the guys in the lineup. Like, I don't know. It's
like, I do get what he's saying. It's funny because, like, I probably sounded like I shit on him a little bit more there than I actually meant. Like, he does bring up a good point. Like, we are in a very much have and have not in the baseball world right now, and the Dodgers have, right?
All of this though, expanded playoffs. Like, that's how you solve this, I think. The days of, like, oh, but the best team in the league, it's not fair that they were dominant for 162 games and then, they can just get knocked out by the Diamondbacks in a 3-game series or whatever. Like, okay, but that's how you level the playing field, right? I is if you're going to have the top dog spending a bunch of money, it's like, okay, maybe the path to a World Series needs to be a little tougher tournament, and like a little bit less of a sure thing. I don't know. Am I crazy with this?
You already know my opinion on more playoff teams. I hate it.
Playoffs you hate, but
you do make a good point, though, Adam. Like, I'm not saying that I'm against it. I do think it would level the playing field. And if you lower the amount of games in a season and allow more teams to make the playoffs, you are absolutely leveling the playing field a little bit when it comes to who's going to win it all, because there's just more variables involved, right? So,
right, like, I mean, as hard as we were rooting for the Guardians to beat the Yankees, right? Like, it was laughable the easy path the Yankees had to the World Series, right? Like, 2024 postseason here, Yankees, the Royals knocked out the Orioles. So the Yankees had the Royals and then the Guardians on the way to the World Series, right? Like, that kind of worked out in their favor that the Orioles got knocked off or whatever. But, like, that I think levels the playing field. And if you added one more round of, like, oh, fuck, the Mets are just going to steamroll the Brewers on their way to the NLCS, you go, okay, but, like, if we have two chances to knock them off, right? Like if it's the Brewers can, maybe knock them off, and then if they can't do it, it's like, okay, well, I don't know, maybe the Cardinals can do it, or
Yeah.
like you just start to have like more chances of whatever. It's just more chances of someone squeaking through, and yeah, I don't know. Like if you took it to the other extreme, right? It was just
Mm-hmm.
one team from the AL versus one team from the NL. There's no playoff bracket. It's just Dodgers or Mets versus Yankees or Orioles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It does feel like, okay, well, that's a huge advantage to just spend and win 162. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think I I've always been
You
pro
have always been
of
more
that,
teams in the playoffs. Yes.
but I think now with the idea of this, because that's the biggest thing. Like when that comment is like, oh, it kills all interest in the game, right? And when I push back and say, well, it's better to have multiple juggernauts than just one. I do stand by that strongly, but the downside with multiple juggernauts, I mean, we know it living in the AL East, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
it can feel like it's such a long shot to even make the play. Like it just feels like such a daunting task,
Yes.
watching baseball through the 90s and 2000s, and you go, oh, there's one wild card spot, and we have to beat the Yankees and the Red Sox. And now the
And the
Rays are,
Rays. Yeah.
we have to play flawlessly to make the playoffs, right? And it's like, at least now with six teams, here the Jays are fucking kind of stink. And we're like, well, there's a path.
Mm-hmm.
We could do it. So I think if you just went to 8 in each league, you go, okay, I feel pretty good. Like as long as we're not the Angels and Oakland and whatever, like if we put in an honest effort, we got like a 60-70% chance of making the playoffs, and then anything can happen. Maybe Juan Soto gets injured or he goes on a cold streak, and you can sell it to me
My
that way.
only pushback to that, dude, is take a look at the standings and tell me what the number 8 team in each league record would be. Because I guarantee it's a below 500 team, and I hate the idea of just bad baseball teams making the playoffs.
Last season, Minnesota Twins, 82 and 80. And in the NL was the Cubs at 83 and 79.
Okay. So slightly better than I was actually expecting. I mean, 83 and 79, that's basically what the Diamondbacks went to the World Series with. One more win than that, but all right, let's move along to the last question here. We're already a very lengthy episode. This is from Laura Lees on YouTube. She goes, Atkins has destroyed this team. I've never wanted someone fired so much in my life. If he had extended Vladdy and or Bo, players might actually want to come here. So, Laura, I will say you are not alone. Many, many, many comments very close or similar to this have been dropped over the last week. I understand the frustration, and I'm right there with you. I'm not 100% convinced no players want to come to Toronto. I don't really think that like Juan Soto choosing the Mets really had to do as a negative black mark on Toronto as a market. I just think that, I mean, Steve Cohen threw so much money at him that
I
how do you
mean,
say no?
Luis Severino went to the A's for 3 years. So
Which is a very good point, and a point that does prove money talks.
money talks. Yeah.
All right, folks, thank you so much for all of your comments and questions. We really do appreciate it. Again, our Joe Siddle episode from yesterday is up right now. Feel free to check that out. We have Baseball Jen joining us tomorrow night. Hopefully, that is out either Thursday. Friday morning is the dream, and that's our Friday show. But so much has been going on in free agency. If it starts to look old by Thursday morning, I'll just put it out and we'll do a Friday episode.
There you
All
go.
right, folks. Again, appreciate you. Couldn't do this show without you, grounds crew members. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you Friday.